Alright, this is John Kohler with growingyourgreens.com. Today we have another exciting episode for you. Today, the day I'm filming this is October 4th. And literally I want to show you guys what has happened to my garden, because over 110 days it has been over 100 degrees here in my very garden. Is everything shriveled up? No! Well, I did lose a few plants. But in this episode, I want to show you guys what 110 days of over 100 degrees did to my garden. And here's a ticket. It didn't do much, actually. No, it did a lot, because so many things grew like crazy. Hey guys, it's John Kohler. I've got something really special for you. From January 12th to the 18th, I'll be hosting a one-of-a-kind, super intimate retreat in the Caribbean on Culebra Island in the Spanish Virgin Islands. This is the first time I've ever done anything like this. Just 4 to 8 of you will get my personal one-on-one time with me, learning everything about organic gardening and holistic health alongside my buddy Kailash Niels. Spots are super limited, so if you ever want to hang out with me in person, this is your chance. Hit the link below to reserve your spot, and I can't wait to see you there. Now, aside from being over 100 degrees for 110 days, which sets a new world's record for Las Vegas, Nevada, we also hit our #1 record for the hottest day ever in recorded history, 120 degrees this year. And many people think climate change is not happening. We've also hit over 115 degrees in this very garden for over 7 days straight. And we also hit over 110 degrees for over 36 days in my garden here. And you know, you would never know it by looking at my garden, because this place to me is overgrown, and just in a matter of about like 2 months, all this is gonna get ripped out, because these are heat-loving plants, right? So in this episode, I want to share with you guys the incredible insanity of not only growth, but also loss of life in my garden, and just how you can grow certain crops here in the desert with over 100 degree weather with full sun, and they could just go nutso cuckoo, because guess what? When it's hot out, the sun is shining. When the sun is shining, the plant is basically creating photosynthesis, creating energy, sending it down to the roots to feed the soil, and of course, growing lots of top growth. I think I'll start right here. This is my water spinach, the #1 spinach I want you guys to grow in the summertime. This stuff laughs at the heat. This was planted about 114 days ago now. At this point, link down below to my video where I showed you guys how I started these and planted these when they were like yay big. They were like looking not too good. And you know, for the first few days, maybe we got like some 90 degrees days, but then after that, it was basically straight up 100. These guys have been living in over 100 degrees, and this wall, I can't even keep up with it. It's just basically loaded up. I mean, I could pull these up higher than the trellis, and if we just measure these guys, I mean, this guy just sticking up all the way to the top. We're here basically pushing 7 feet tall here, and this is just one plant. I planted this whole wall 40 feet back of all this water spinach that goes all the way back. I have more food than I can even eat, right? And how many of you guys this year planted water spinach? I want to know. Post it right down below. All right, next crop I want to show you guys that has the most insane growth, growing from seed that I basically put in the ground approximately 145 days ago. And when these guys were small for the first month, they grew like that much. They didn't really grow too fast, but once they got larger, more established, they started growing like gangbusters. This thing is massive. This was growing from seed, planted out in like June. And if you guys look here at the base, this is like literally looks like a little tree trunk right here at the base, guys. This is like a nice girthy diameter, has all these offshoots off of it. And if you guys look, it just goes up and up and up all the way. This is known as the Egyptian spinach, more nutritious than kale. And let's go ahead and see if I can get like a height measurement on this. All right, so if we go down to the raised bed, looks like we're pushing 10 feet on this guy right here. Egyptian spinach, 10 feet tall. And the cool thing about this is that every single one of these leaves are edible, right? And there's no way that I'm possibly gonna eat all the leaves that are growing. So I've been freeze drying them and you could turn them into a powder. You could also dehydrate them, turn them into powder. If you don't have a dehydrator, you could put them at a low temperature in your oven to dehydrate them out and then turn them into powder. Right now they're going to seed, so this is a mature seed pod that will end up drying up, and then you crack it open and then all the seeds will drop out. And that's how these were grown, because I actually grew this last year from seed, and all the plants that I have in my garden are from seed that I grew last year. Special technique to germinate these seeds, you do need to put them in some warm water. I soaked them like overnight, and then the next day I planted them wet. I've never had luck just putting them in my garden otherwise. Now it's cool, on this side I have another Egyptian spinach growing, and you guys can see some of these pods on here. They look like the same thing, but if you touch these pods and you squeeze them, they're a lot softer. So these ones are not yet mature, so we're gonna bust off one of these and check it out. These are like a delicacy right here, guys, these little pods, because they're so tender when they're young. You could bite them and eat them. They're like more delicate than okra, not as slimy. Quite delicious. Even when they're this small, they're edible and quite delicious. But yeah, one amazing plant. Grew like gangbusters, over 100 degrees in my garden. It laughed at the temperature. All right, guys, so you guys can see basically everything you are seeing here is my summer warm season garden, some of which was planted as early as late April/May. Some was planted in June, depending on when I got the time to do it. And this place is just is overgrown literally. And what's sad to me is that within about 60 days, all this is coming out, because it's gonna be totaled, because we're gonna get our first frost, and none of this stuff likes the frost. However, if you guys lived in the tropics, many of these plants will live year round. That being said, let's go ahead and walk down literally where, I mean, I'm sitting here in the Mojave Desert. This to me is like a jungle. These plants are like towering over me, especially these ones right here. Now these ones I did not plant purposely. These are Jerusalem artichokes, and I purposely don't harvest all the Jerusalem artichokes or the tubers from underneath the ground, so that consequently they come back every year with a vengeance. So never plant Jerusalem artichokes where you don't want to basically have them grow forever, because I can't even get all the tubers. There's always a small one I miss. Nonetheless, I gotta basically trellis these up, and if we do a height on this one, this is my tallest growing plant, guys, like all year, or for this season, right? In one season, from the time it got warm, these started to grow. It's currently in flower, and if we go all the way down, if you guys look at the base where this raised bed is, you guys can see we're basically over 12 feet tall right now. These guys are over 12 feet tall, which is absolutely insane. This is the most growth ever. I've grown these like for the last 10 years, but because we had such extreme sun, extreme climate, extreme weather, extreme heat, these plants grew the best. So, you know, why am I telling you guys this, right? Well, the greens are a valuable source of proteins for us, but, you know, the carbohydrate crops like the Jerusalem artichokes, high in inulin content, are good storage crops. You can dig them up as you need them in this climate throughout the winter, or even if you live in other places, you can grow them. Literally, the Native Americans that were here before the white man came were growing the Jerusalem artichokes, but all of us people that live here in North America no longer know about it. It's literally a wild food. You could eat it raw, you could cook it, you could eat it just like a potato, and it grows so insanely quick here in the weather because it's literally naturalized to North America, and I want you guys to grow it. All right, speaking about tuberous crops, another crop that has done amazing here, and you can grow many places in the United States, are the sweet potatoes. I'm growing sweet potatoes, the lilac purple sweet potatoes, sourced from rareseeds.com as little baby plants, right? I grew like 60 of them here in this alleyway, literally in 15-gallon pots. These were planted, some were planted as early as late April, most of them were in May, and actually a few of them I planted late in June. But nonetheless, as you guys can see, it filled up a nylon string trellis I got from Amazon. Links down below to my Amazon shop so you guys can learn about the string trellis I got that's been holding up really well, literally to cover the side of my house. So now my house does not get the sun, so my house does not heat up as fast, but now the sun is being put to good use to get absorbed by the greens, So it doesn't hit my house, it hits the greens, which then photosynthesize, they grow more, and these vines are just going crazy. They go up to the top of my house and then they kind of fall back down. And if I try to measure these guys, I mean, they're at least 8 feet up to the top and then they fall back over. So some of these vines are like 10 feet tall. Now, of course, on the water spinach and these, I've actually had to clip them up. They didn't want to just climb up on their own, and I've clipped them up, which is definitely a little bit of work, but definitely worth it, because not only am I going to have the tubers to harvest in just about 2 months, but also all these greens are edible raw. You can eat them raw or even steam, which is my favorite way to cook these greens. But yeah, this wall literally was not here in April. It's just totally, completely full right now. And of course, it's gonna be coming out in just 2 months. But yeah, we're sitting here over 100 degrees today, and this stuff is just growing like gangbusters. All right, another plant that is literally dominated in over 100 degrees. They kind of, wilt out a little bit during the midday, but then they keep on growing. These plants were basically planted in basically early May. Once again, these are from Baker Creek. Baker Creek calls them edible hibiscus. I prefer to call them bele or a hibiscus menuhat. It's not a true hibiscus, but nonetheless, these are planted from little plant starts that I got from Baker Creek. And if we measure the tallest one in this bed, we basically got over 7 feet tall right here. Now, all these leaves are edible, just like lettuce. So these are easy greens you guys grow. They also grow as a tree. So if you guys live in the tropics, like in South Florida, Hawaii, these will grow into massive trees and live year round, whereas I'm growing them as an annual crop. The cool thing about these is that how you propagate them is you could just cut this whole branch down, stick it in the ground, and then it'll regrow roots, and you could propagate it and grow more of them. So all these plants will get cut and then rooted, and then I'll be growing more of these, and they will continue their lives in the tropics. So yeah, I love these. They just grow so fast, so rambunctious, and once again, provide more leaves than I can even eat. So aside from growing many different tropical vegetables, that some of which you may not be familiar with, of course, I'm growing some regular staples. Right here, we have a whole bed of mint, right? Never plant mint in a raised bed unless you want the whole bed to be dominated by mint. Link down below to my video on that. Basically, we cut off all the flowers, that way it produces more leaves, and even through the 100-degree weather, this guy was thriving, providing me more mint than I could even eat. Behind me here, we have a whole bed of basil, as well as the stevia, another heat-loving crop. Of course, I have other crops such as my peppers. These are roulette habanero peppers that are not supposed to be hot, but they're quite hot, over 3 feet tall. And as you guys can see, this plant here is just loaded up with so many peppers I need to harvest. I've been basically drying these to make a hot pepper powder out of them. They're quite delicious. All right, so as much as I showed you all the plants that are succeeding, and I have so many more all around my garden, including eggplants and okra, and I don't grow a lot of tomatoes. They're living, but they're not producing because they just don't really like the heat. I have had a few losses, not too many, maybe a few losses when they're little baby transplants, but once they got more mature, they totally were surviving just fine. That being said, I did lose maybe up to about a dozen different tree-collared, pure, and crosses that I've been growing. This is one of them. This was actually a crossed tree-collared. And definitely these did not like the heat. If I did want to keep these for sure and keep them alive, guaranteed, I would probably put a shade cloth on them. But I'm like over that. I have plenty of other tree collards, such as one sitting right here on the other side, that are babies that didn't mind the heat. But I find that when these get a few years old, they can succumb more to the heat. And that's all right, because if that happens, then I just replace them, because I have other ones ready to put in the ground to replace these. So as much as my garden did grow, yes, I did lose some crops, but that's part of gardening. You're always going to lose some crops. You just need to focus on what's growing good, and of course learn new varieties to grow, and also of course grow the ones that will be successful. All right, so as much as I've had tree collard losses, I'll also have tree collard successes, because I grew a tree collard here, which actually also didn't make it this summer, but before it went out, it actually dropped seeds down. So you guys can see all these little babies here. These are all tree collard seeds that germinated from my tree collar that was sitting right here until I replaced it with a new one. But now I have lots of babies growing up to take its place. And these babies, in my opinion, because they were literally born here, the seeds were grown here, the tree collar plant had to put up with the weather here, these are going to be more resilient because now it's more adapting to my climate every generation, that the seeds continue to produce, fall, and germinate new baby plants. So I'll basically be digging these up when they're a little bit bigger and then moving them to other spaces in my garden, so that next summer, should we have over 110 degrees, I'll have like 20 of these planted out, and even if I lost 10 of them, I'll still have 10 more, and I'll even probably have a lot more planted in the ground than that, because the tree collards are one of my favorite plants to grow. So while I have had some explosive growth in my garden, the challenge with over 110 days of 100 degrees is that we're here in October, and I like to plant my fall winter garden in September, and I literally just can't do that when it's still over 100 degrees, because the plants are not going to like it. That being said, I had to put my foot down and start planting my fall-winter garden so that they get established enough so that by the time it becomes cold, I still have food to eat. And that's where one of the challenges have arose, because it has been so hot so long. It is delaying me from planting my fall/winter garden. So you guys can see I planted a whole bed of the Lola Rosa lettuce, which is my favorite lettuce because it's a deep red color. But you can see I lost 1, 2 plants here, 3 plants here. Maybe this guy is not going to make it. 4 plants, 5 plants, and then plus this guy is already starting to bolt really fast because the weather's too hot. So this is going to be, you know, this potentially whole bed could be a crop failure because it has not cooled down enough to start planting my plants. And if it gets, you know, if I start replanting in November, then the plants have not gotten to good size before it gets really too cold, and then the plants don't grow too fast in December and January. Of course, other plants I have planted besides the lettuce, such as the red boar kale right behind me, and another tree collar that survived the 100-degree weather, is doing great. And I have another bed of dinosaur kale that I also planted early that is succeeding as well. All right, so as you guys can see, this is the final bed I'm going to show you guys. This is planted out for the fall/winter garden. My blue stem dinosaur kale. It's growing really nice, doesn't mind the heat. Actually, I had a bunch of these that actually grew over last summer as well. But nonetheless, in this episode, I hope you guys learned what even in over 100-degree weather, plants and food crops that will thrive in over 100-degree weather. I hope I've motivated you just a little bit. If that crazy dude, John, in Las Vegas, can grow in over 100 degrees, 110 days, right? You guys could grow when you get a heat wave of 100 degrees for 2 days or 3 days or a single day or even a week, right? Just start choosing and grow different plants. And of course, all the plants that I'm showing you guys, they don't need to grow in over 100. They would surely love 80 degrees. They would surely love 90 degrees and grow without a problem, because if I could stress them out here at over 100, trust me, they're gonna do well where you live as well. If you guys want to learn about all the crops I grew this summer in my garden here in the heat, over 100 degrees for over 110 days straight, because we still got about another week to go of over 100 degrees, links down below to my garden tour video where I go over every single plant planted in every single bed. I surely hope that this video inspires you just a little bit to start growing your own food, and even if your climatic conditions are the worst or too hot or too difficult, don't let that dissuade you, because you will learn, as I did over time, the crops that are gonna thrive in your area. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up. More importantly, share this with other people that live in hot and enduring climate so that they could start growing some food today. They can become more sustainable on the planet and start eating more healthy plant foods that you grew yourself. Also, be sure to click that subscribe button right down below so you don't miss my new upcoming episodes. I'll be coming out every 5 to 7 days. You never know where I'll show up, what you'll be learning on my YouTube channel to inspire you, hopefully just a little bit, to start growing more of your own food, no matter where you live. Make sure you click the little bell so you get notified as my videos come out. And finally, be sure to check past episodes. Past episodes are a wealth of knowledge. Over 1,700 episodes at this time on the channel, dedicated to teach you guys all about how to grow your own food at home. So with that, my name is John Kohler with growingyourgreens.com. We'll see you next time, and until then, remember, keep on growing.